the internet is facing a new wave of challenges with
Mm.
AI becoming more and more advanced and agents kind of replacing humans. So AI can now generate human-like text, images, deepfakes, and even like interact as if it were a person.
Hello and welcome to the Test Community Network. My name's Tim Bennett. I hope you're all safe and well. Today we're going to be talking about personhood credentials. So that was Nouran. They're just giving a bit of an insight as to what they are and the challenge as to what we have to face. So AI's coming. Humanity needs to defend itself. So it's a really interesting conversation. I do recommend you stick around. I've got some other insights and updates for you. As ever, if you want more information, want to stay in touch and stay in tune with what's going on, then I recommend that you subscribe to the Test Community Network. It's free. And you get a lovely weekly email listing out all the events, online opportunities there are to you to boost your knowledge and awareness of everything to do with testing and assessment. There's also a fantastic podcast I do recommend, and we've had some really good chatter about it on LinkedIn recently and some great feedback. So Amanda and I do a podcast called It Depends. Search it on all major podcast channels or wherever you get your podcasts. And I do kind of strongly recommend it. So kind of monthly episodes come out. We're talking about psychometrics and all the kind of useful, helpful guides around test development. The other thing is that Amanda has been doing, she had last week her office hours. She's got another one coming up in October, I believe. A very successful opportunity for you to quiz Amanda and the team about all sorts of psychometric content, any kind of psychometric questions you have. We did get onto AI. I do apologize. It wasn't the purpose of it. I do love talking about it. And of course, you can go to the Test Community Network where you can find my recent update on, I've done a 30-minute introduction to how I believe our kind of 5 steps really towards or artificial general intelligence and all the amazing generative AI tools that are out there that can help you along that way. It's a double bill for me today. So I've just done a webinar with Debbie John from CQI, AJ from Excelsoft, and Jonathan Ledger from the Department of Business and Trade, UK Business and Trade. We had an amazing conversation. I'm going to share some clips with you. I've just pulled them out from the show. So here's Jonathan just talking about some of the opportunities that afford you in relation to Ofqual.
You know, does everyone want Ofqual regulated or not? Actually, some countries do, some don't. Lots of people buy more training and qualifications that's not Ofqual regulated than is Ofqual regulated. The simple fact is Ofqual regulation ends at Dover. Doesn't matter which way you're going, it ends at Dover.
And we're also trying to kind of build in the chatbots that Debbie was mentioning. So there's a lot of interesting challenges that has been put forth in front of us, and we are just trying to build these small widgets. Very interestingly, we already have about 5 or 6 clients who have started piloting these in different geographies in the US, in Canada, in the UK. So
I cut myself off there. And finally, here's Debbie just talking about their kind of experience and some of the benefits around their move from paper to digital assessment and some things that they experienced along the way.
If anyone's invested in malpractice thing before, you know, it takes up a lot of resource internally, and we're quite a small organisation.
Yeah.
And then I think sort of the third thing was really around the move to online learning, which obviously particularly was accelerated during COVID. So we were originally thinking about moving to online exams just before COVID for the sort of QA perspective. But then during COVID, obviously there was a requirement for people to do their exams online. And then afterwards, a lot of our learners and our training providers continue to study online. So it made sense to have our exam online as well, so that learners had a seamless.
There you go. So Debbie talked about the seamless experience and what the benefits of them moving towards that digital transition. She also talks about localization, the test development exercise, and there's some fantastic questions from the audience. So if you do want to watch that, you can watch it on demand. Go to testcommunity.network. Once again, thank you to Excelsoft for sponsoring that event. Really well attended. So great one and worth listening to. But today, now we're talking about personhood credentials. And this was something that kind of flashed up in my newsfeed. I saw this and I thought, well, that sounds fascinating. Just the idea that you could defend yourself as a human in this kind of new age of AI that's out there. So I'm going to play the full interview now I had with Nouran from MIT. She's a P.H.D. student at MIT studying this idea of digital credentials. So here's my interview with Nouran. And thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for joining the Test Community Network here today. Would you like to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your work?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So my name is Nouran. I'm a PhD student at MIT, and I work on looking into online safety and trust for social spaces. So spaces like social media, where people interact together.
Excellent, excellent. And I kind of I saw an article about personhood credentials. I heard it on a podcast that I listened to on a regular basis, and I was fascinated because the idea of identity and things like that are a big issue within the assessment space. Could you explain a little bit more about what personhood credentials are, what the kind of background for your work is in this, just so we get this picture of what this is?
Yes. So personhood credentials, or PHCs, are a way to prove you're a real person online and not an AI or a bot, without actually giving away any personal information. So think of it as a digital ID that confirms your humanity but keeps everything else private. And the idea is that, so PHCs are really important because the internet is facing a new wave of challenges with AI becoming more and more advanced and agents kind of replacing humans. So AI can now generate human-like text, images, deepfakes, and even like interact as if it were a person. And what's worse is that it can do that at scale. So I guess this makes it hard to tell who's real and who's not online. And this is the whole motivation behind PHCs, to help counter this by allowing people to prove they're human, in order to reduce online fraud, disinformation, and so many other deceptive behaviors.
But is it because when we were talking earlier, you were talking about the idea that academics face this challenge of posting content and protecting themselves. In that sense, that was a bit of a foundation for this, wasn't it? Do you want to explain a bit more about that, or it's connected, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess so. Before I got involved with the Personhood Credentials work, I was working on a parallel idea that resulted in this new design paradigm named mirronymity. So the idea there is, let's say as an academic, you want to interact online in a space like Twitter, but in general, it's a high stakes interaction. So people tend to be more cautious about these kinds of interactions, and because it's directly related to their careers and future. So in a sense, how do we balance between the verification of identity and trust or credibility, and also anonymity? Because the full disclosure of your name kind of results in censoring yourself. As a researcher who, let's say, wants to ask a question in this community. So I guess the motivation behind my work was, how do we help these individuals mitigate these social barriers? And that's where mirronymity came from, balancing between the aspect of privacy and also the credibility. And by basically selecting specific verified aspects about yourself when you're interacting, instead of saying your name. So let's say I'm a PhD student at MIT and I have this question and I'm not really comfortable sharing it with my name. So instead I can say something like, a PhD student at MIT is asking this question, and the idea is the audience is going to know that this piece of information about me is verified, so they could actually trust the person asking the question without necessarily knowing the exact person. So I see this mirroring the same idea of personhood credentials. However, the angle is different, because personhood credentials are more around, okay, the internet is going to be a mess because of AI becoming very powerful. So how do we navigate that? How do we maintain some sort of credibility in the future So that's like the urgency of where this is coming from.
So how would I go about getting a personhood credential then? How would I go about that process?
Yeah. So the process of getting a personhood credential starts with enrollment. So imagine going to a trusted issuer, and this could be a government agency or a company. And then you're able to prove you're a real human first by showing up physically, and second by showing some form of verification, like showing a passport. And then once you're verified, the issuer gives you a credential that you can store digitally. Now, when you need to use this credential, say to sign up to a service provider online, you can present it through a secure process that doesn't reveal any personal details. So imagine, like, I guess the best analogy is it's like flashing a badge that says, hey, I'm real, but without actually saying who you are or revealing your badge number.
Yeah, okay. And then, see, the way I kind of, obviously, during the assessment process for examinations, and you'll probably have been through this as a student, if you've taken an online, if you ever taken an online proctored examination, is that something? Yep. You've got to show your ID up to the camera and all those kind of things. Now, there are some important reasons why an organization, awarding organization, might want to know exactly who you are, because they've got to, obviously issue the grade and score to that person. But just by knowing that, look, I'm real, maybe saying I'm real, but here's my candidate number or something like that, so there is a reference to tie it in.
Yes.
That would reduce a lot of the kind of worry and risk about people sharing personal information, because they're really quite conscious about that. So do you see that there is some potential connection between how exams and assessment works and personhood credentials, or do you think the two would probably exist in parallel, but there would need to be another solution for the assessment world?
Yes. So there are so many layers there. First, I want to comment on why personhood credentials are different from like showing on your ID on camera or like some other existing form of verification. I guess with personhood what's special about personhood credentials is that, so yeah, you get your credential from an issuer, but then the issuer doesn't know anything about your activity. And also the service providers cannot really track you. So the idea there is how to design the system so that, let's say for each service provider, you have a different pseudonym, and then you cannot really connect your activity or get tracked. So that's like the safety or privacy aspect of it. So now you can basically interact without revealing these aspects of yourself. The other part is a lot of existing forms of verification are now easily hackable by AI. Even showing an ID, this like AI systems now, models now can create fake IDs, deep fakes that are very realistic. So that's also one other issue with that. So I guess to sum this up, personhood credentials are mainly depending on two things: showing up physically, and then also verifying that, oh, this is a real person, because they were able to obtain a valid personhood credential by using cryptography, so that it doesn't really expose who you are. Yeah. So once you're able to do that, let's say you're a student and you're involved in an online learning environment, how do these go hand in hand with like assessments and so on? So I guess personhood credentials can help ensure that each student is a real person, and then they haven't created multiple fake accounts to game the system.
Yeah.
So it kind of limits cheating in a sense, without invading the student's privacy by asking them to disclose personal details.
Yeah.
However, the personhood credential itself doesn't really prevent that a person from that a student can actually use tools or agents to do tasks on their behalf. So I can get a credential. So now I'm real, I'm accountable for this account, or I'm the person who's responsible for that. But there isn't a way, at least at the moment, to kind of say, well, this confirms that or this guarantees that I'm not really using AI on my behalf, like an AI agent to basically solve my exams and take the course, and I have no idea of what's going on. So that remains as a challenge in maintaining the academic integrity with the current model. But I see it as a big step forward towards limiting these kinds of behaviors from bad actors.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I think it's one of those things where there's obviously a problem there, and we're going to face a bigger problem, certainly from the AI side of things. And we don't necessarily have a solution for that at the moment. I was listening to somebody the other day saying, my voice is my password. Well, that's not the case anymore, is it? It's kind of, that has changed. I've been cloning my voice off left, right, and center with various different platforms, and it's it's very different, isn't it? What's the next step then with personal credentials? Where do you see this going, in the future?
Yes. So I think we have multiple recommendations in the paper. So we believe that the world needs to care about this as soon as possible, because we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where AI is too powerful and then we're not able to navigate this world. So governments, policymakers, research institutions, companies need to really think about the infrastructure of such a system. How do we implement this at scale, and how do we implement this such that we pay attention to challenges around accessibility and making sure that people can, like various minority groups or various people, get enough resources to be part of this. And then also, how do we implement the system in a way that doesn't compromise democratic processes, so that, imagine if a few companies or entities have are the only issuers, then basically the idea of centralizing the power in one place, this could lead to so many problematic consequences. So how do we implement a system that is equitable, accessible, and also decentralized in a sense? So I believe this all needs to be studied. A lot of research should be conducted. A lot of investment should be done. And also policies should be developed in order to get this to work.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's a very, I suppose, an immediate problem that we need to think about. Now, people have been talking about AI and the hype of AI, and yes, we have got some hype around AI, but it's, people are saying AGI and things like that aren't far away at all. So therefore, we need to have a plan in place for the social economic mechanism for it. And this is just yet another one. How do I prove that I am human is an important part of that process, isn't it? Yeah, it's exciting. So brilliant. Thank you for that. That's a really good explanation to it. Just final question. Are we talking blockchain technology for this, or have you got something else in mind for this?
Yes. So I think part of implementing this could be depending on blockchain technology. And I think there are already existing companies, and maybe in some other countries, they are starting to study these options of using blockchain technology to establish such decentralization. But there are so many other layers to that as well.
Yeah, I think we've been talking within the assessment space for quite a long time now about using blockchain for certification for your certificate effectively to sit alongside it. And one of the big issues is how do I store and carry that certificate? Because there are online providers, but if it's associated with an email account, what if I move business or change that email account or lose it? So how do you access and store it? Because the nice thing about a printed certificate is you can stick it in a drawer, you always know where it is. Obviously, if that gets flooded or burnt, then that's an issue, but at least you have a physical thing to hand. Whereas with blockchain, it's doesn't exist, does it really? It's a digital thing out there. Well, excellent. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, because I saw the article, I saw the conversation about the podcast, and it was just really quite thought, yes, this is a challenge, and I really need someone to explain this to me. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Well,
So thank you
for having me.
Yeah, and well, I'm sure there's some further resources that we could share as part of this and share out to the community. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for that, Nouran. That was excellent. I really enjoyed that, and I think what I like about doing this work is when I pick these things up and put them out there, is it just inspires us that there is some alternatives, there is some future. It's not all bad when we're talking about the idea of AI. There are people out there like Nouran doing some fantastic work, just trying to unpick that future step, what's going to happen next. Just a reminder, some events that are coming up soon. So today, I think this will be US time, so you can still catch us if you're watching live now. Why Performance Testing with the Institute of Credentials and Excellence, so get yourself signed up to that. We've got next week the UK Skills Partnership Skills Fest 24. Jonathan was talking about that as part of the webinar clips that I shared earlier from the leadership webinar. I do recommend that. That's over 5 days, so online free webinar to check out. Concave, looking at the potential of micro credentials in vocational education. I think the answer to that is huge. I think micro credentials are the future. We'll be learning in bite size. ATP September coffee chat. So Nina from the operations team there doing a fantastic job organizing these, and they're going to be looking at equity inclusion in modern assessments. We've got a badge cert, reskilling and upskilling, preparing future work there. So check out Ginger and the team as they talk about badges. NCTA webinar, how to articulate your assessment lifecycle for diversity, equity, inclusion. So another hot topic there about D&I. And then we have using AI with accreditation reports. It's worth checking that webinar out. They're all going to be in the show notes, the link to the website. So on the website for Test Community Network, in the event section, you will see lots of information there. You'll also see podcasts which are coming out regular, some brilliant podcasts that I follow. I think it's like 80 odd now or something like that, different channels that I follow. And of course, you got the marketplace as well. So if you're out there looking for an assessment platform or technology, or looking for some reports or data, then chances are I've picked it up and I put it on the marketplace. If it isn't there, you know of it, then let me know and we'll make sure it's up there. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you next week, where I believe I've got either Justin or Manny interviews. I can't remember which way I put it around, but there's some exciting interviews that I've already got recorded and lined up for you to be shown over the next couple of weeks. So check that out. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.